things happen. God knows, y'all, I ain't gonna lie. This time, I didn't expect that. I didn't expect it. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Whoa, wait a minute. What are you doing?
Leandria Johnson is not some overnight viral star who popped off because of a clip on TikTok. Her story runs way deeper than that. Leandria was born and raised in Palaca, Florida. Small town, big church energy, and I mean deep in the church. Her father, Bishop Gregory Johnson, wasn't just preaching on Sundays, he was leading a whole Pentecostal congregation. Church wasn't a weekend thing, it was life. That's where Leandria learned everything. Discipline, music, ministry, and yeah, how to keep things looking good even when you're hurting inside. She started singing at just 2 years old, and not like cute baby singing around the house. We're talking full-on church solos, grabbing the mic with both hands cause it was bigger than her head. She was already moving people at an age when most kids were just learning their ABCs. And the environment she grew up in, it wasn't casual. This was serious gospel culture. She was surrounded by giants. Folks like the Winans, the Clark sisters, John P. Key. That's the sound she was raised on. That was her standard. Her whole life was gospel excellence. Sunday morning suits and real choir rehearsals that went long. But here's where we gotta pause, because people love to throw shade like, well, she was raised in the church, she should have known better. And yeah, she knew the rules, but let's be real, being raised in the church often teaches you how to hide your mess, not heal from it. You learn how to hit a high note while your world's falling apart. That's survival mode, not freedom. And that's where her story really starts to twist, because even angels raised in the choir got battles no one claps for.
I don't want to hurt nobody. But there's one thing that I must confess.
Now let's get into some real life stuff. Before she ever stepped into the spotlight, Leandria had already lived through a full season of struggle. She got married young, and by the time she was coming up in music, she had already been divorced twice. She had 3 kids she was raising, and she wasn't doing it from some mansion or fancy tour bus. She was trying to stay afloat, and at one point she even lost her home to foreclosure. That's not a metaphor, the house was gone. And that kind of stress, that'll make anybody start questioning everything, even their faith. And this part really matters. People love to imagine gospel singers floating on clouds or always highly favored and blessed. But Leandria was dealing with real stuff. She was struggling just like the rest of us. Bills, heartbreak, parenting, depression, all of it. She just happened to have a mic in her hand while it was all happening. But right when it seemed like life had fully dragged her to rock bottom, something shifted. And here comes Sunday Best. If y'all remember that show, you know what it meant. It was the gospel world's version of American Idol, but with choirs and testimonies. Leandria didn't roll in with a glam squad or designer heels. She walked into that audition wearing flip-flops, socks, and not a drop of makeup. Not because she was trying to make a statement, it's because she was literally just trying to make it there. The judges looked at her like, girl, what is going on? But then she opened her mouth and sang, "This is the day," and in that moment, everything changed. It was raw, it was real, and it shut everybody up. You could feel something shift in that room, like a weight lifted. She wasn't polished, but she was powerful. That voice was soaked in something you can't fake. Pain, redemption, struggle, all of it. She went on to win season 3 of Sunday Best in 2010, got the full prize package, national exposure, a new car, cash, and a record deal. It was like everything was finally lining up. Her prayers get answered in front of the whole world. But here's the thing, no one tells you about making it. It doesn't fix what's going on inside. That win wasn't the finish line. It was just a pause in the chaos. And the truth is, sometimes the very thing that saves you also sets you up for a whole new kind of pressure. Because now the world was watching, and y'all already know what comes up also comes under pressure.
I'm just taking this time now to just really just woosah. And if y'all know me, like you know me, you know that this is a daily walk, and this has been a daily walk for me for some time now. And I'm yet still growing.
Now, this is where things get really messy. Leandria's life was falling apart in front of the world. She started drinking, and not just a glass of wine here and there. We're talking mimosas in the morning, Long Island iced teas at night. The pressure was real, and it wasn't long before the consequences caught up with her. She got arrested for DUI, spent time in jail, and was ordered to wear an ankle monitor. That's when the whispers started. You know the ones. Isn't she a gospel singer? People started to wonder if the woman with the powerhouse voice was really all that saved. That's when the media started calling her the bad girl of gospel. Some churches dropped her from their events, distancing themselves from the drama. But oddly enough, some still booked her. Was it because of the controversy? Or were they doing it out of compassion, hoping they could help her? Either way, her struggles weren't just behind closed doors anymore, they were front and center. And it didn't stop there. Leandria went viral for a rant that she made about the church, and she wasn't holding back. She even named names, including one of gospel's biggest figures, Marvin Winans. She wasn't playing. She was done with the facade. She was tired of being the gospel singer who couldn't mess up, and tired of the church that turned its back when she needed help most. But here's the thing. This wasn't about rebellion. It wasn't about trying to destroy her career or bash the church. No, it was something deeper. It was her screaming for help. Underneath all the mess and controversy, Leandria was saying, "Somebody, please help me before I completely fall apart." And then just when things were spiraling, someone stepped in, whether she wanted it or not. Here comes Ayanla. Fix My Life, Leandria's episode on the show was intense. Let's just put it that way. She didn't hold back. She admitted straight up that she was struggling with addiction, and worse, she confessed that the people closest to her were only worried about the checks clearing, not her well-being. They were enabling her. That's when Iyanla did what she does best. She called out her team, telling Leandria that they weren't helping her at all. They were letting her spiral as long as it was profitable. Then came the bombshell. Leandria's label dropped the ultimatum. Get it together in 90 days or you're out. Just like that. And you know what? That right there is the ugly truth of the industry. When the money's rolling in, people ignore your pain. But as soon as the truth comes out, it's no longer profitable to stand by you. Everyone suddenly acts like they never knew you were struggling.
Oh, stop the music. You can look at me like that all you want to. Yes, I went back on the fast again. The people with the judgmental spirit. At least I'm able to talk about it.
At that point, Leandria was at a crossroads. She had a choice: fade away quietly, let the industry chew her up and spit her out, or fight back and try to reclaim her life on her own terms. And that's exactly what she did. She chose to rise again. That's when IPC Ministries was born. It stands for Imperfect People Changing. And Leandria made it her mission to stop performing for people's applause and start actually doing the kind of work Jesus spoke about. She stopped chasing church approval and started living out a more authentic form of ministry. She didn't just preach, she served. She started feeding the homeless, hosting concerts for people who had nowhere to go, especially on New Year's Eve when loneliness can hit the hardest. She created I Progress, a monthly outreach program dedicated to helping people who were struggling, not with a sermon, but with tangible support. And this was the real shift. Leandria wasn't just preaching the gospel, she was living it in a way that was raw and real. She made it clear that ministry wasn't about perfection. It was about people who were willing to be imperfect, but still make a change. But even with all the good she was doing, people still had questions. The skeptics never left. They kept asking, is she really okay now, or is this just another phase, another show? That's the question Leandria still has to answer, but at least this time it's on her own terms. And then Leandria dropped the bombshell. She finally opened up about everything, and when I say everything, I mean everything. She said her struggles were worse than anyone knew. She revealed that people in the church actually let her suffer on purpose as long as her pain kept making money for them. Now that's deep. She said, and I quote, "People allowed you to suffer in silence unless your pain benefited them." Now, y'all, that's not just some random rant. That's a direct hit at a system that claims to care but often feeds off of your downfall. And when Leandria said that, it wasn't just an emotional confession, it was confirmation. Everything fans feared, all the whispers behind the scenes, she said it out loud.
You blind! If you sit in your church and you know, well, why can't I live like that? You can't tell me you sit in church and you don't be like, well, why can't I live like my pastor? Why can't I live like my first lady?
I'm pretty sure they don't want me to be there because I said Christianity, the church. I said that.
And with that, Leandria didn't just speak her truth, she shattered the chains that were holding her back. But here's the real kicker. Leandria is not chasing perfection anymore. She's done with that. The gospel glitter, the polished image, and worrying about what the church folks think. Yeah, she's over that. She's embracing the messy, the flawed, and the real. Leandria is showing us that salvation, it doesn't always come wrapped in a choir robe and a perfect voice. Sometimes it comes in the form of tears, tattoos, and hard-earned truth. And honestly, that's what makes her so relatable. She's not pretending to be something she's not. She's real. And you know what? That's probably the most powerful testimony of all. So, if you thought gospel music was just for the holy and the perfect, let Leandria's story remind you. Sometimes the most powerful testimonies come from the most broken places. So, what do you guys think? Did the church fail Leandria, or did she finally take control of her own healing? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure you're subscribed too, because Leandria's story is far from over, and we're just getting started with the real convos you won't want to miss. Let's keep it real, and I'll catch you next time.